with my buddy Alex and my buddy George with Elevated Lifestyle Lab.
What's going on, guys?
What's up?
How you doing?
George, sit.
I'm over here.
There we go, there we go.
All
got
right,
we got our
guys.
family and friends with us too.
Yeah, we got Todd back there pounding some miles already.
Todd's testing out the treadmill, getting it dialed in
He's
for us.
trying to get ahead of you. He's like, I'm
Can
gonna.
you
get
guys
the
hear
record.
us on live? Because it's actually going to be through there, and we're talking in here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
If you guys can hear us on live, give us a thumbs up. All right, let's rope.
Cool. What's up, guys? Alex here with Elevated Lifestyle Lab podcast. We're bringing you an amazing episode today, guys. I got my co-host George Riccitelli back on the mic with me today, and we have an absolutely amazing and inspiring guest for you today, guys. We're actually recording this episode from a gym, Palm Beach Sports Club here in Palm Beach Gardens, and it's like T-minus 21 hours till our boy Jason Lester is going to attempt to beat the Guinness World Record for the greatest distance covered on a treadmill for 7 days. So I'd like to welcome our guest, Jason Lester. What's happening, my man?
Hello, hello, hello.
Man, it's such an honor to have you on here, man. I met you last year, and I met you before I knew who you were. And
That's the best way, actually.
and I never knew who you were until after the race, which I felt like was a better way to meet you because I got to know kind of you before reading your book, man. And it was an absolutely inspiring story. So I really want to welcome you on here. George, welcome back on here with me, man.
Thank you guys for having me on here. It's an honor. I just want to throw it out there. This is my first podcast since podcasts have been around, probably for 10 plus years.
Popping that cherry.
Popping that cherry. And I can promise you that I probably won't do very many more. So it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. I think that I probably would have never done this with you if it wasn't you. So ask away.
Yeah, man.
I'm happy to share.
Well,
And,
first let's kind of do it backwards. So first we're going to tell what you're trying to accomplish. I already mentioned in the intro, but let everybody know what you're going after this week.
Yeah, I had a vision. I did a 24-hour treadmill run 6 years ago in Kailua Kona, Hawaii. Someone I knew close was battling cancer, and we were trying to raise money for him and his family. And then we found out as we got closer to the run that his wife also had cancer too.
Oh, wow.
And so we had a classic car show. It was in the middle of a Honda dealership, and I'm like, oh man, I'll run on a treadmill for 24 hours and try to raise as much money as possible. And I saw the impact that had for the community. People just watching me from afar and close were like, wow, look what this guy is doing. What could we do to better our health and our lifestyle? And just watching, the couple that was battling cancer was there live, and it was an emotional experience. And so, as you're running, you're like, man, I think that I could try and do this like longer, because after 24 hours came up, I thought it came so quick.
Yeah.
And I was at mile like 112,
Nice.
and I was like, you start doing the math, and you're like breaking things down, and so I was searching around like, well, what's the furthest anybody's ever ran on a treadmill before? And so came up with the Guinness Book World Record was 7 days, and there's a distance. So I'm like, let's go for it. And it's like I applied for it, I think, over 5 years ago.
Wow.
And life got in the way, and we did some epic adventures across the world. And but it's always been in the back of my mind that it's on the bucket list.
Mm-hmm.
It needed to be the right place, the right time, the right vibe. And just make sure our fitness level is where we want it to be too. So here we are. 2021. We just came off of a crazy year that's probably going to be historic.
Yeah.
With COVID, and we're still kind of in it. And the world needs inspiration right now. So my goal has always been to just inspire one person. I don't need to inspire thousands at once. So I always call it the ripple effect. If you could just put a little drop in the water, and it'll reach the West Coast really quick.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, just to break it down, guys, the current record right now is 525 miles covered in 7 days. So broken down, Jason's goal is to run right around 77 miles a day to conquer that record. And I know you guys are thinking, like, what the hell? Is that even possible? But I want to give you guys just a quick recap. Jason, you could probably take a coffee break because how long your resume is here. But I just want to give a few highlights as far as what you've accomplished, just to give people an idea, like, oh, I don't think that's possible. But I think that's what you stand for is redefining what is impossible, because you've broken down so many walls. But just to give our audience an idea of a few of the things Jason's done, and I would suggest everybody go to his website at jasonlester.me to really get a full scope of what he's done, because it would be a whole entire podcast of me just reading this list off if I were to read that. But just to give you guys a few highlights, he ran across the first person, also being from America, run across the Great Wall of China. Nobody's ever done that. He ran 2,600 miles along the Great Wall of China back in November 2014. He's ran across America. He's broke a world record for the most hours ran with no sleep, so that was great preparation for this.
Yeah.
He's done the Nike Journey for a Better World. So when Nike, they started a campaign back in 2012, and that's when Jason was sponsored by Nike. They actually sponsored him to run and bike across the United States, which is about 5,000 miles. And it wasn't a straight shot. It was like a U going through the United States. It was like starting from New York, down and around, and back up to the northwest side. He is the co-founder of the Epic 5, which is 5 Ironmans in 5 days on 5 Hawaiian islands, which is nuts. And the list goes on, guys. He's ran across Australia. He's ran across Europe. He's almost finished with his trans run. How do you call that? The trans internet, basically running around the world.
Trans World Run?
Yeah.
Trans World Run. So he's getting
Would you
close
say
to
you have
that.
about 3,000 miles left?
Yeah, I mean, you can look at a map and be like, okay, we have 3,500 miles to get back to the point, but, it's going to be probably like 1,000 more. It's just the routes change and roads
Yeah.
are closed, and, with what's going on with the world, who knows what happens when they open up the borders back.
Imagine 90% of the people in the world have never flown around the world and
Yeah.
run around the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, on foot. Yeah.
Yeah, the
it's
things
crazy.
that I've seen is just, people always say, man, the things you've seen has been amazing. And I go, I have like millions and millions of memories.
Yeah.
So it's can't even really put it into words what I've experienced. But it's a great way to see the world. Most people want to drive and fly and take boats and trains and all that. And I'm like, well, we can do it by foot. It's amazing what you can see just by running versus riding a bike. Because when you're riding a bike, you got to focus, on what's going on ahead of you. When you're running, you're like, oh man, that looks really cool over there. What is that? And you're like, I think I'll stay in that village tonight. And next thing and you didn't plan it. You thought you were going like maybe 20 miles up ahead. So it's been an amazing journey. And I always say, man, that I always feel like it's just starting.
Yeah.
Even though, you look at this, and I look at this list too, and I'm just like,
Blown
I'm
away.
in awe. Yeah, I
Yeah.
really am, man. I think, and I think, we've said it before. I've kind of shared with you a little bit in privacy that it's kind of a blessing and a curse that I've never really stopped to reflect a lot of these things too. I bang them out, I get it done, the mission's accomplished, I'm on the flight back home, and you're already working on like what's
Booking the next.
Yeah, what's the next thing? And
Yeah.
so, I don't know, maybe that's that moment when you're 70 years old and you're out, fishing or on a boat, and you're like, oh man, you're like looking at this going, oh wow, that was an amazing life.
But through a lot of these experiences that you've had, I mean, you've touched a lot of people. I'm sure they've touched you, and you've just built so many memories. Even if you're not reflecting on them now, they're always with you.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah.
like you were telling us about when you were running across China, the different experiences that you had, and that's I mean, it's pretty amazing.
I've had a lot of amazing experiences, and I've had a lot of close calls. I've had a lot of reality checks. I've had a lot of fear factors. I've had a lot of those experiences with it, but it all comes back down to humanity. Touching people in ways that normally you wouldn't get to touch. And so even through I wouldn't call them bad experiences, but maybe experiences that weren't the best. I can result back to those kids that I saw, or that family that I met, or that relationship that was breaking apart right in front of my eyes in Italy. And then the universe put me into that situation, and then, I stayed the whole day with that family, and I kind of brought them back together. And it, it all had to do with, like, she wasn't serving her purpose, and he wasn't supporting it. And I was like, oh man, this is amazing. What am I doing right here at this very moment in this small village in Italy? And I'm like trying to bring them back together. And I'm like, this is what it's all about. This is what the calling's all about too. So they say, and like even in neuroscience, that we only have our memories, right? Like when the whole thing's done, when we're here on Earth, is that we're only left with our memories. So we need to keep flooding our mind with positive memories, and then it flushes out the things that we experienced as kids that maybe weren't so amusing, and things we've experienced even with life in general, setbacks and failures, and sickness and health issues and all of this. So I tell people the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing is because I want to continue to bring good memories into my life so that I can live a life of happiness. That's what my happiness comes from, is positive memories. Like this right here is putting that positive memory in the bank.
It's funny you say that. I was listening to a neuroscientist as well, and they were explaining how the brain works. It's very similar to a computer, and how when you get older, it feels like, man, that year flew by. Like as they say, as everybody says, as you get older, the years seem to go faster.
Absolutely.
And how the neuroscience broke it down is people get in these habits and these routines. They wake up, they eat the same thing, they go to work the same way, they drive the same route, they take the kids to the same school, and they don't do much throughout the year to break that cycle.
Right.
So what your brain does is it gathers those memories and it's Control-Alt-Delete, because it's the same thing. You don't need it. So the guy was explaining to kind of put almost bookmarks or these different like events or whatever you can relate to in your life to lock in these memories, to make an impact, or go do something fun, or go to the beach. But the same way, man, it's just not doing the same thing day in and day out. And it really it makes sense, because it's like, the years that have flown by, it's the years that I've just been working a bunch, or just doing like the same thing. And the years that I can remember back, it's like, oh, you remember that trip to Colombia? Oh, you remember I did that 6-day race? That was crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's really it's cool to think it on that concept.
Dr. Joe.
Yeah, Dispenza.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Dr.
man.
Joe Dispenza. He, and he went through his own life-changing experience too. Getting hit by a car while he was, out training, and it's true. We've all experienced things in our life, and we talked about it a little bit yesterday. Our setbacks and what we call failures. I always call them kind of like derails, or life experiences that have really woken us up and shaken our core, in order for us to change. And we don't change in life unless something like traumatic happens. We experience something that like financial situations where we're like, man, we have to make this work. I have to eat.
Right.
I have to support my family, or the life that I want. Gym memberships, and healthy foods, or nutrition supplements and stuff like that. And so we don't change until we almost have to change.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, like, you don't have to wait until something happens to change. Like, my dad had a heart attack at 39 years old and passed away. And I'm like, I don't want that to happen. Like, I don't want to have a heart attack for me to go, I got to make a change.
Yeah.
I
so many people do. They wait till then.
We all do.
Yeah.
We all do. And I think, we live in an era now, though, we have so much information available to us, to where we can kind of like be our own doctors now. We could be our own healers. I've even had situations too where I'm like, man, I know I need to go to a doctor and get this checked out. And it was just like a diet change twist thing that I needed to do, but I had to do it on my own.
Yeah.
And so, we can be our own guru.
Yeah, man.
And I think that's what's amazing about life, is that you have the ability to be your own doctor. Like, what works for me is not going to work for you. What works for me is not going to work for George. And so you have to fine tune who you are, who you want to be, and what works for you. And don't worry about what society is dictating on what it needs to be, or what nutrition is dictating on what it needs to be. Find out what works for you.
Yeah.
What brings you peace and happiness. And it's I always say you're signing up for the long haul. This is an ultra. Life is an ultra.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not a sprint.
Yeah.
So, don't try to figure it out tomorrow.
For sure. Well, I'm curious, man, because if we go back in your story, guys, please pick up his book, Running on Faith. You can get it on his website. It really goes back into his story. But just to recap, after all that I've mentioned that you've accomplished, 30-plus Ironmans, probably several million more, that's probably shooting high, but several Ironmans, riding the bike, running across all these countries. And I didn't even mention that you have limited mobility in your right arm.
Right.
So, we go back to your childhood when that happened. Just kind of a quick recap. I can let you tell it, or we can kind of go through it. But my main question I'm curious about, because I kind of ran across this last year, is when did you decide to kind of make this about helping others rather than just becoming an ultimate athlete? Was there a time where you were doing this where I was like, it's not enough to do it for myself anymore?
Yeah.
Do you remember when that was, kind of?
When I grew up as a baseball player and football player, and I was an all-star baseball player. It was like 7 years in a row, and my dad was a college football player, and I could see from afar because he was my coach and he was the president of our little league, and I admired him and respected him so much that like I never wanted to let him down as a kid, and but I could also see that he was trying to mold me maybe into an athlete that he could have been, because he went to Vietnam and ended up getting married after that. And so he really didn't probably fulfill his athletic side. And what's so interesting is that, he passed away really young, and I didn't really get to learn a lot about like his athleticism because he never really talked about it. Like when I played football, he'd be like, this is your 3-point stance and this is the way that you need to hit. And he talked to me in that aspect, but he never told me, like, well, when I played college football, this is what we did. So it wasn't just until like recently where I got to talk to his brother, who I don't have a great relationship with. But I like sent him emails to pick his brain because I'm like, he's getting up older and I don't want him to pass away and me not ask these questions. And it was like, I had a laundry list and I'm like, what was my dad like in like grade school? What was he like in high school? I know he went to Vietnam and all that, but before that, he told me he played 2 years of college football. What was he like? And he sends me back like this one-liner and he goes, this is emotional. He goes, your dad was the best in the state. Mm. And I was like, best in the state? What does that mean? And then like, I responded back, was he all state? Was he like all that? And he goes, your dad was so good at center that he broke his nose. Someone like put their fist through his face guard and broke his nose. And if that hadn't not happened, he would have went like D1, but instead he went to like junior college. But he was like second best in the state at center, and the craziest thing about it is that no one in the family knew that he was even playing college football. He would like sneak away to his games. He didn't want the attention to be on him. His brother, who I emailed, was like, Mr. Top Gun F-15 pilot, like really admired and respected academic. And so I thought, that's where I get my...
It's just like you, man.
It's exactly. And so I'm like, that's where I get my, this isn't a big deal to me. Like, I look at this list, and with no disrespect to anybody out there, I've never looked at it like this is a really big deal. Of course, when you go to the starting line, you're like, this is going to be a hard 7.2-mile swim.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I've gargled on my own blood. I've had tubes stuck in my chest. I've been pronounced dead. I've fought back from these battles. I'm like, I've seen worse. What could hurt even worse? You know what I mean? And so, I think I have great admiration and respect for people that to toe starting lines.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a story, and that's what's so crazy about meeting you. And I mean, the more I talk to George, I'll learn more about his story. But like, I'm in awe over your story, and you guys are in awe over my story, but we all have a story, and that's why we're here today with a platform to be able to share our story.
Sure.
And today with today's technology, there's like millions of stories out there. And so I think I kind of like belittle mine.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, what is mine to like the person that came back from cancer, or the person that, lost their child, or, the experiences that they have. But, yeah, man.
Yeah, I'm glad somebody push you to write the book? Because I know you're so low key. You would, if nobody would have pushed you, you would have probably never ran it. And I'm super glad it's out there
Yeah.
to really dive into what your story is. Because like you say, you downplay it, although you know it's, you know, you're humbled about it. It's very humbling. But as we were talking in the 6-day race last November, it's like you just don't know by telling your story who you're going to help, how it affects that people. And like you're saying, the ripple effect. I call it the butterfly effect. Same thing. It's just like, you know, you just by you sharing that story, and then, you know, now here we are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Doing something amazing to inspire other people. I love it, man. It gives me the goosebumps.
Well,
you know,
what's
it's
so interesting too, and I think a lot of reasons why I downplay it too is because I've checked into hotels before where the person at the front's like kind of mistreating me or maybe disrespecting a little bit or not giving the attention that they need. And then, you know, you come back down to the lobby the next day and they've already Googled you or whatever, and they're like, oh, wow, that's you. You know what I mean? So it's the same thing at the race.
Right.
Like I'm going to, you know, I rolled up to you like I was just a normal athlete, because I am. I don't see myself any different than anybody else out in the playing field. And so, you know, and it's the same thing on planes or being in line at a grocery store and the person behind you taps you on the shoulder and was like, hey, man, just want to let you know I read your book and it changed my life. And, you know, or, you know, I listened to Rich's podcast.
You realize how rare that is, though? I mean, you're very, very, very unique. I mean, for, I can't say everyone, but just about all, just call famous people, athletes, whatever the case is, it's like they get big heads.
Yeah.
You don't, you're just humble, low key, and you just want to help people.
And you know, that was what's so amazing about being with Nike is they're like, you're so approachable. Like it doesn't matter if you're at Starbucks or, you know, you're on campus or you're at these signings or whatever. Like, people can touch you. People can't touch LeBron. People can't, you know, back when, you know, rest in peace, Kobe, but this was back, you know, Kobe was still alive, and people can't touch Kobe. People can't touch Tiger. Mm-hmm. You know, he's got like these security guards and these like all these security measures going. Exactly. And for me, I'm like, no, I will stay an hour after the signing and I will go out to lunch with the random person. And it's because I feel like I can connect with people better than like, let me sit down and sign these books. And I don't even see myself as that. And you're exactly right. You nailed it, by the way. I would have never written a book if it wasn't for someone saying, hey, I will do everything possible for you to write this book. All you got to do is just tell the story. Tell your story. And that's crazy is you're trying to put it on 280 pages, and my story is like 5,000 pages.
Right.
You know, so I feel like this is like chapter 1, and we have more to come. And, you know, right now, today will be part of that story.
Yeah, man, it's going to be an exciting week.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I was talking to George earlier, and I was just like, you know, we got here on Thursday, and here we are Sunday. Tomorrow's Monday, but I look at it like when I'm going to bed at night, and I'm trying to visualize 7 days. I'm already like, well, we've been here for 5 days already, and that's how fast 5 days goes by.
Right. Yeah.
You know, like I haven't even been to the beach yet.
Yeah.
You know, I haven't even been able to experience your guys' beauty. So it really does. It goes by quick.
Yeah.
And so. Everybody's brain's different too, and we could dive into that, you know, a little bit later, like the science behind, you know, doing these type of things, and how our brains are different, how we react and not react, you know, how you can block out. We're the master blockers, by the way. Our brains are so powerful and strong. Like, we can block out an event that happened in our life like it never even happened. Well, you can bring that into like a long distance sporting event too. You know, where you're like, yeah, it's already 6 p.m., but it's like, you know, 12 noon.
Yeah.
But that's how I accomplished, you know, Epic 5, to make sure it was even humanly possible that it could happen, is that I had to like literally visualize myself on Maui already on day 1.
Yeah.
So like, you know, 3 days, 4 days ahead, because I had to trick myself. I'm like, oh, you know that part in Maui that you absolutely love, and this is the way that it feels. Lanai is beautiful and all that, you know, and so you can set yourself out there already, and then you can feel it. Dr. Joe talks about that at all. It's about that feeling of that success.
Well, one thing you said to me yesterday, that kind of hit home, is that when you set out to do something like this, or any event that you're doing, that you visualize yourself at the finish line. Like you already know what it's going to feel like and where you're going to be when you get there. So before you even start, you know that you're finished. You have that confidence that,
Yeah.
that you're done and you're going to be successful in your event.
I write about that in my book. Like, you have to visualize yourself at the finish line. And where that came about was I was doing Ultraman Canada, and 7.2 mile swim, and it was in a lake, and you could see crystal clear across the lake, and you have to like swim across the lake. So when I was at the start, I could see like the finish, and so I started thinking to myself, and again going back to memories, if I could do this for all of my events, I will have a stronger success rate. You know what I mean? Being able to just see clearly, crystal clear across that vision, and visualize yourself what it's going to feel like getting into that last mile. And we need to do that in life.
Yeah.
And we need to, and especially, in business and in relationships, and just because what happens is we have this chemical release to our brain when we could see what the outcome is. And that could be fear, that could be being scared, or it could be like, wow, I want to accomplish that. It's the same thing when you go shopping for a truck.
Mm-hmm.
I could see myself in that Marin truck.
See yourself driving out of the lot, and
You visualize it, and what
Sure.
happens?
That's
You,
even-
you manifest it.
yeah, Alex and I play golf, and it's the same thing. When you walk up to the tee box, you try and visualize your shot where it's going to end up.
Right.
Not that it ever ends up there, but we try and visualize.
Try.
We try and visualize
Yeah.
and see where the ball's going to go,
Yeah.
and I never really thought about that, like taking it like beyond like one step at a time. But what you're talking about is taking it for the entire journey.
Right.
And visualizing that end, and I think that applies across the board, like whether it's in business or whatever the case is. If you're starting a business and you want to see where you're going to be in 5 years, just you got to visualize yourself where you're going to be and what type of success you're going to have.
And don't forget about the journey, though, the process that you have to go through. Because a lot of times people have like a misconception of that, and they'll go, well, if you visualize yourself at the finish, then you're kind of, you're not stopping and smelling the roses, and you're kind of missing the whole journey. I'm like, no, enjoy the journey. But if you don't know where you want to go, you're not gonna reach that.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's even with business and what you guys are doing. Like, you have to have a clear vision of what you guys want to obtain. You know what I mean? And so, and again, it goes back to, what does that make you feel? Well, it excites you, right? And it stokes you out, and you have that, like, that utopia
Yeah, man.
feeling where you're like, oh man, I got like, talking about, Alex and I were talking about, going to Colombia at the end of the year and doing all that, and I'm like, oh, I could smell that. I could smell and feel and see, and I'm like, okay, now I want to do it. Now I want to be involved with what you guys are doing, right? Because I know that feeling, and I need that feeling.
Yeah.
So that chemical release that happened was the one that was like, this excites me.
Yeah. Well, that's like this. Listen, I think it was probably Joe Dispenza or another neuroscientist, how they they talk about visualization and literally putting yourself there. Because I experienced this before my 6-day race. Is kind of how I would call it, like a vision of what's going to happen. And you put yourself there. You hear Conor McGregor talk about it. You hear Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, talk about it. That it's for them, when they get to that finish line, it's no surprise to them. They've experienced before. And how the neuroscientists talk about, your brain doesn't know if your body's actually doing it or not. If you're in like a meditation or a visualization and you really have it down to the T, I think you talk about it in your book, like you visualize high-fiving the people at the finish line and then just backtrack that. You visualize crossing the halfway point. You visualize how you're going to feel at mile 50, and you've lived it already, so that way when you're actually in the event, you've already done it.
Right.
You've already done it.
Right.
It's already done. You just got to make it come through. You got to just hit the play button and just go.
Now we've talked about the finish. Now let's talk about. I'd like to ask you like how you got started.
Yeah.
I know you grew up as an athlete.
Yeah.
And you played baseball and you played football and that sort of thing. But what was your first like real experience of running?
So played baseball, played football, and then got in the car accident where I got hit by a car, and so you're kind of like in this rehab stage. I had 21 broken bones. Every limb was in a cast.
And you're only 12 years old,
Yeah,
man.
it's
That's
12.
got to be so hard. Hard any age, but devastating.
12 years old. It's like 2 weeks before our state championship football game. I got all my teammates coming to the hospital while I'm in ICU to check on me, and I'm like, what happened? I'm thinking I just like fell off a bike, because you're just so numbed on morphine and stuff that you're not quite sure what happened yet. You don't know what's moving. You think everything's, in a cast, and that's why things aren't moving. I had no idea what happened to my right arm. Like, I just thought it was broke, just like the left arm, because it was snapped in half. And so, put me out on the hospital floor where you kind of, you're getting better and better and better, but you're still, everything's in a cast. And then there comes a point where, like, it's time to go home, a couple months later, and I'm like, and they're weaning you off the morphine because you can't go home doped up like that. And I'm like, no, I need more drugs. I'm like 12 years old, sitting there telling the nurses, like, I need whatever I was on, like, I need more of that, because I had a tube in my lung to drain my collapsed lung. And when they took the tube out, I was just, I had to breathe on my own for like the first time, kind of. And I was like, I'm gonna die. Like, everything just like got smaller and smaller. So we go home. They send a nurse home with me to, like, do rehab and all of that stuff. And we go through like the rehab period. And 6 months later is when my dad had the major heart attack and passed. And my first thing was, I either need to go like ride my bike as far as I can, or I need to run, I need to skateboard, I need to do something that's like outside of the house instead of like I didn't want to mourn his death. Like, I didn't want to just sit there and think about like, well, he's gone. Yeah. Because I'm like sitting there still rehabbing, kind of. Like, I'm trying to figure out how to cope with this new kind of style, not lifestyle, this new style of doing things, like tying your shoe with one hand, walking up to a door but you're carrying a box. How are you going to get in the door? Like, I'm trying to like adapt to this. And normally your parent would help you through this, right? Like, they're your support system, and like, he's not there. And my dad was a single parent, and so I'm like, wow, I have to grow up super quick, because I have to become like the man of the house. I have to figure out what I'm going through. So I found myself running around our grade school track. And I remembered back to when I was like 5 or 6 years old, where I would run with our like preschool teacher, who was a marathon runner, and I would run around the track with her. So I fell in love with like the track. And so I was like, and this is when Tyson was 18 and he was on the front cover of Sports Illustrated. And I'm like, I want to be Tyson. Like, he used to wear like long johns and train, and he was in the gym all the time and all that. And I'm like, I want to train all the time. I don't know what it is that I want to train, but I just want to train. And so I started running around the track, and I was like, I like this feeling. You know what I mean? And at that time, I was still trying to adapt to what was going on with my body. Like, mind you, my ankle had been snapped in half. My knee was snapped in half. My left arm was snapped. I have a paralyzed right arm. I'm having a hard time breathing. And here I am, like, running. And so I found out that the more that I ran, that pain of, like, the loss that I was experiencing, the pain of, like, what I experienced with the accident was going away. Because I had this new pain. The pain was, my lungs are freaking burning because this running sucks. You know what I mean?
Taking your mind off the...
Exactly. So I traded one pain with this other pain. So then I was like, oh, that works for me. So the next thing you know, I'm running like, I'm like, well, I'm going to run to the mountain today, Squaw Peak, or I'm going to run to South Mountain. It's like 10 miles, 15 miles. And I'm like 16, 17 years old, doing these like long distance runs, but I never put a distance on it. I'm like, today I'm going to do 10 miles. It was more like, okay, I know I want to go to the mall, but I'm not going to take the bus. I'm going to run. And so I look back at that and I'm like, that's really where it started. Because then you start going into high school, and like, I played freshman football and I played freshman baseball with the use of one arm. And my freshman baseball coach, we were doing laps because we got in trouble. We were doing laps, and I would always come in first. And it wasn't because I was fast. It was because I wanted to get it done as quick as possible, because I hated running. He pulls me aside, and he was like, you really need to think about going out for the cross-country team. And I thought he was telling me, dude, you suck at baseball so bad that let's just try this other sport. Yeah. But I actually started my freshman year on the freshman baseball team, so I knew that I wasn't like that bad. And I was playing baseball with the use of one arm. Mm-hmm. I was playing football with the use of one arm. But I think he just saw something that I couldn't see. And, you know, I was like, all right. So, you know, here I am trying out for the cross country team, and I hated it. Like, I hated the whole thing, like, you know, where you have to run 3 miles today and there's no ifs, ands, or but it. You know, like, you got to run it. And, but it was one of those things where I'm like trading one pain for the other. I miss my dad immensely. I was still struggling with this accident that like people treated you different, or they didn't even know how to talk about it. Like my friends didn't even know how to talk about the accident, you know. And that was weird to me because I didn't see myself any different. Um, and so went out for track, went out for cross country, kind of like fell in love with that. Sophomore year, I'm like, okay, baseball's done. We're gonna like focus more on running. Football, we were in JV, just getting annihilated, right? Because we had to like scrimmage against the varsity,
Yeah.
and you have like 220-pound, fullback coming through the line and just bulldozing me at 140, and I'm like, yeah, I should probably just kind of like maybe go into
Switch it over.
to running. But what was cool about that is like I had an immense amount of respect for like Greg LeMond. Like I remember seeing him on the front cover of Sports Illustrated, and there was a magazine called Winning Magazine that I saw him on, and I'm like, I think Tour de France riders are like the coolest thing in the world. And I open up this Winning Magazine that he's on the cover of, and I think there was like an article about like Dave Scott about this thing called Ironman, and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. You could do 3 sports in one day. I'm like, sign me up. Because it was like that challenge.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I was like, I loved running. We all loved biking, right? Because we were on our BMX all the time. And I'm like, swimming, we'll figure that out. You know. So it was 17 years old, thinking like, I want to be an Ironman. You know, and
Did you start with the what's it called, the dual athlon
yeah,
first? Is that,
yeah,
and
started
that's
because
running
biathlon was it's like you can do a run bike run or a run bike, and that was really popular in Arizona where I'm from. Triathlon wasn't popular, like we didn't even have a triathlon. I don't know if it's because we didn't have
Not a lot of water.
lakes, waters, right, stuff like that. So, 17, 18 years old, here I am signing up for duathlons, and just it was a lifestyle.
Wow.
I was like, these guys are fit. I want to be fit. I want to feel like sharp and just on it. And so your body starts developing into this like, multi-sport athlete. And I just thought that was like, the coolest lifestyle you could ever, live.
Is that the first time you hopped on a bike to see if you could actually compete with the arm?
Yeah, what's so crazy about that is I would go down to the bike shop at like 17, and they had this Nishiki hanging up on the wall, and it was like fluorescent yellow, and it was like the coolest looking thing ever. And I'm like, I want that. I want that bike. And at the time, my girlfriend for my birthday bought it for me, and surprised me with it. And I was like, I got to figure this out. And I didn't even think that my right arm could, I knew for a fact that it couldn't hold the bar. I had never even tried a road bike before. And I mean, I remember putting both arms on the bar and being like, okay, this isn't going to work. Then you start like innovating. And I'm like, well, what if I put a glove on it and I like strap it to the bar to where it just like, if I could just get it to just stay there instead of like hanging. And so I spent hours and hours and hours just trying to get the arm to just at least stay on the bar.
Right.
And then by my senior year in high school, I was riding like 20, 30 miles before school started. I was just so pumped that, again, it was trading pain for pain. I was struggling with my father's death still. It didn't make sense.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not this age yet. George, how old are you?
45.
Yeah, so there you go. So, I mean, can you imagine at 39 years old? I remember when my 39 came up and I was like, wow, my dad passed at this age. I felt 18.
Yeah.
Like, what was he feeling like? I mean, he couldn't have, felt like he was like 60.
Sure.
And so, back to your question, 16, 17 years old, cross country, track, getting into biathlons, had no idea about like the ultra world. You didn't really think too much of it. To me, Ironman was ultra. Like,
Yeah.
that was like crazy, crazy. So I think the ultimate goal was Ironman, and I didn't even do my first Ironman till like 15 years after that.
Oh, wow.
But I got the Ironman logo tattooed on me at 17 years old with
Did
a fake
you?
ID. Yeah, on my back, because I thought it was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
So, and I talk about it in my book too. It's like, it's visualizing that thing.
Yeah,
like,
you knew that you're gonna someday do that.
it's like your business. Like I'm sure you have grand visions with your vision. With your business, but it might not happen today.
Right.
It might take 10 years because there's this path you have to go through in order for you not only to accomplish that, but in order for you to be successful at it. And so I think that was the same thing with me, is that I had to go through this journey in order to even toe the line at an Ironman too. So I look back at my life at that and I'm like, man, it's amazing.
And then it went from a biathlon to just a regular Ironman to then Ultraman, which is 3 Ironman distances?
Ultraman's a double in 3 days.
And then you just keep excelling. When was the point you decided to start running countries? Like,
Yeah.
when did that whole decision start to like, well, let me just run around the world? I mean, these little marathons just aren't doing it.
I remember sitting in my bedroom, on my bedroom floor when I was 16 years old, trying to figure out how I could bike across the United States. So back then we had like, Atlas books or TomTom books or all these, like you had to flip the pages in order to like go to the next city and the next city. And I had tore them all apart, trying to figure out if it was possible to bike across the United States. And this was also obviously before the internet, and you could just like go on and figure out that it's already been happening. But I was like, I knew I wanted to bike across the United States as a kid. So, you started doing Ironmans, and I didn't even think about running across the United States. But it wasn't until, you're doing Ultramans and you're doing these doubles, and you're like, what's bigger, and what's more days, and they have triples and they have tens and decas and all this stuff, and it really wasn't until I was talking with Nike before I signed with Nike, and we talked a lot about like, what are some things that you would like to do if like money wasn't an issue. And I was like, oh wow, that opens up a whole new can.
Yeah.
Like, because everything's about money. Like, money is an issue. This is a very expensive sport.
Yeah.
So I was like, if money wasn't an issue, wow. And I'm like, just like spit out of my. I remember sitting at the table and being like, run across America, and they were like, seriously? And I was like, yeah, I'd like to run across America. And they were like, well, we've done that before. And I'm like, we? And they're like, yeah, Nike ran across America for 9/11, where they had like employees that could sign up to do a segment, but like they ran like 5 miles and the next employee ran 10. And
Yeah, so it was like a relay.
Exactly. And I was like, really? And they're like, yeah, so we have a blueprint for that if you ever wanted to really do that. And I was like, no, I want to do it, like, and I want to do it soon.
Yeah.
And so, when you find that you have the support, your vision enhances.
Sure.
And you start getting really creative. And so I told them that I wanted to run across the United States, and then they came back at me, well, if we support you in running across the United States, would you be willing to kind of alter it a little bit to where you ran from like Nike store to Nike store, so that we could promote product and promote what you're doing, and promote these different things? And I was like, you can't say no to that, because that it's a mutual
Part of the business.
Mutually
yeah.
beneficial.
It's exactly.
Yeah.
So I'll never forget saying, I'm willing to alter it, but to what extent? And they're like, well, would you be willing to run and bike across the United States? And I go, well, what does that mean? And they're like, well, we figured out this route, and it's 5,000 miles. And I'm like, wait, it's only 25.
double
It's only 2,800 or 3,000 across the United States. And they're like, yeah, but we have like 38 stores that we want you to go to.
You got to make a pit stop at Texas.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, again, you don't want to say no, because you have that mutual obligation. And so I said, when you say run bike, what do you mean by that? And they said, well, you'll run 1,000 miles and you'll bike 3,500, but you'll never miss a mile. It'll be continuous. And I'm like, oh man, there went the vision of running across the United States at. But then instantly it clicked in where it's like, look about the people that you're gonna touch.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so, it wasn't compromising at all. It was, for me, it was like, I want to reach people.
And that was a good way because they were setting up for you to speak at their stores. So
Yeah.
rather than just kind of soloing it or with just a few crew to run, they're at least setting it up so you can at least get get some inspiration out there, right?
I want to loop back around from your question, though, George, is that 2008 was a remarkable year. I mean, we could look at it right here, but and I don't even look at it in that way. But that's when we became the first challenge athlete to finish the Ultraman, the double Ironman. And little did I know that that got in the hands of ESPN. And I'll never forget. I was getting ready to crew Gary Wang, 10-time plus Western States finisher. He invited me to be on his crew to crew him for Western States, and we're sitting in his hotel room 2 days before the start of Western States, and I get this email. It's hilarious. I'm in the bathroom. I get this email, and it said, "Vote for the 2009 ESPY Award nominees." And because you sign up, like probably years before, you sign up to be on the list, the email list, to be able to vote. And I'm in the bathroom, and it said, "Vote for this year's ESPY winners." And I open it up, and the first athlete's Oscar Pistorius, and I'm like, boom! I clicked on it to vote for him because he's just a remarkable athlete, and his accomplishments are amazing, and I have a great respect for him. And then 2 people down, and my name's on it, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is a misprint.
Wow.
I was swallowed my stomach, and I'm just calling people, and I'm like, is this real? Is this really happening? And my buddy Nathan LeDuc, he goes, dude, you're one of the most inspirational people in the world. And I was like, what? And he goes, you don't understand what you do to people. And I'm like, yeah, but the athletic side, it doesn't matter about inspiring someone, the athletic side. And he goes, you don't understand that what you're doing, people can't do. And I still, to today, I don't look at it like that. And he goes, you're amazing. And he's been a great, inspiration to me my whole entire life. And he goes, you deserve to be on that list. And he goes, as a matter of fact, you're going to win. And I was like, you're nuts. And he goes, we'll talk about it later. And I go, I want you by my side when we go. And so, you get nominated, but it's the public that votes you in. So ESPN puts you on the list and then invites the world to vote. So they don't pick you. So Oscar's number 1 on the list, and I clicked on it and voted for him even though I was on the list. I think he's, what he's accomplished is just remarkable.
And he was the track runner.
He was the track runner, the Blade Runner.
Yeah.
And won a ton of gold medals in the in the para section, and then he he qualified for the regular Olympics.
Crazy.
Not having legs, and
Yeah.
so I click on it and I vote for him, and people are like, "Why would you do that? Why wouldn't you vote for yourself?" And I'm like, "Because he's gonna win. I know he's gonna win, and I want him to win." And this was on top of me, and I was even telling my friends to vote for him and stuff too. And so ESPN puts you on the list, and everybody that's on the list gets invited to the live session where Samuel Jackson's going to announce the winners. Wow. And so, you get invited, and it's, the hotel is completely shut down for all the athletes. And, you walk in, and it's Michael Phelps, Mike Tyson, Tim Tebow, and you're in this fraternity of athletes that are just like you. And I'm in awe. It's the USA soccer team because they won gold, the year before, and Nathan's with me, of course. I got him to come with me, and we get checked into the room. We're at the Standard in LA, and I was like, I can't believe that I had to fight and struggle so much, and here we are. And he looked at me and he was just like, you better have your winning speech ready for tomorrow night. And I go, what? And he goes, yeah, just be prepared. And I was like, no. Like that's not gonna happen. And so we go to the taping, and so they're taping the hour segment. So you go into the Kodak Center, and it's packed with like every single pro athlete that is at the top of their game. And so you're like sitting down, they seat you, you have your name on the seat, and like the USA soccer team was right in front of me. I'll never forget that. And basketball players that you admired, LeBron and Kobe, and they put me on the end cap, and Nathan sits next to me, and he goes, they put you on the end cap because you're gonna win. And I seriously, because he's a jokester, I seriously thought he was joking with me, kind of like trying to pump your buddy up.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah, you got this.
Yeah, you got this. Like, trying to like calm my nerves.
Yeah.
He was visualizing me.
And I needed that, right? Because I'm like, that's good that you're joking with me, because I need that right now, because this is amazing
Serious
experience
moment,
to be here. And so the way that it's announced is it kind of runs up on this big, huge screen behind Samuel Jackson. And it goes so fast because there's so many categories and stuff that he can't like announce every single winner to come up on stage and get the award, because it would be like, what was the best play and what was the best catch and what was the best moment. They have all these things. And so when they announced, the winner of my category and my name came up, I was just like, this is not real. Like this is out of worldly, like this is like another planet. And George, to answer your question, my brain went right to, how do we use this to better mankind? Like, this is amazing. This is an amazing experience, and this is going to be awesome to get this award. But what can I do with it? And that's when I started thinking about Epic 5, was like in that seat. And just to clarify real quick, I'm the founder of Epic 5.
Okay, I wasn't sure, or yeah.
And the reason why I want to share that with you is because Epic 5 started in the seat of the Kodak Center at the ESPY Awards. I started visualizing bringing communities together with sport. And I'm like, okay, I can do Ironman, but can we do like multiple Ironmans on multiple Hawaiian islands? Is it even feasible, like with flights and crew, and can we do that? And so Epic 5 was birthed at the ESPY Awards.
That's cool.
And it was about walking out of there and walking the red carpet and being put up on this pedestal. In 10 seconds, people looked at you differently. People acted different, and I remember walking out of the Kodak Center. And I'm walking off the carpet, and one of the first people that greeted me was a sports agency that I worked for 5 years before, that I used to sit at and just visualize myself being like, what would it be to be a professional athlete? What would it be? I mean, Muhammad Ali used to come into our office, and McGuire, and all these amazing athletes that you admired. And I'm like, I wonder what it would be like to be like that. And here I am, like all of a sudden, just for like a split second, I got to feel that, that feeling. But my brain's always been to, how can we use this to inspire other people? And so, we walked out of there, and you have this award, and you have this, people are calling you and contacting you out of the blue that never contacted you before, offering you deals, and they want you on radio stations and TV and all this. And I always, my heart was always in like, this has to be to better mankind.
Is that when you were sponsored by Nike after this happened?
Oh yeah. So
okay.
So 2009 was the ESPYs, and wrote the book in 2010.
Okay.
And once that was getting ready to launch, things were just like rolling into place, and it was just like you couldn't even really catch up with the opportunities that came about with that. And Nike approached me, and it was interesting because like I didn't sign with them on the first day. It was like a process. I wanted to make sure that they were genuinely on board with like the charity initiatives that I wanted to do. It wasn't about wearing the swoosh.
Yeah.
And so I think I went to Nike like 4 times before I signed with them. And people thought I was nuts. They're like, why didn't you sign with them on day one? And I go, because the support that I wanted was far different than like the athlete support. You know, I wanted support with what I wanted to do with my vision.
Sure.
You know, what I wanted to do with the Never Stop Foundation, what I wanted to do with giving back to communities, and like going back to my high school and making sure that I could give, gear and equipment to my high school, the people that helped me become the athlete that I am and stuff. And so it took a while. It took a while to lock that in and get on the same page. And that's how Journey for a Better World came about, because, again, it was about the local community that we went into, where those Nike stores were. So I would run or bike into the store. You know, it was like an 80-mile bike day or a 26-mile run. But when I came into the store, the community was there. They got invited that day, right?
Cool.
And so then I did a talk to the community, and then the next morning I had to wake back up and do another talk at the same store to the staff to get them pumped up, you know, about what we were doing.
That's awesome, man. Was all that, because doing crazy ultra events and doing athletic stuff is one thing, but getting in front of people and speaking, was that like a whole nother journey for you, just to be comfortable to be able to get up and like do what you do?
Well, like biking 80 miles and then like having to go into a store and act like you're excited to be there. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
you're like, I just want to lay down right now.
Oh, my legs would be like completely toasted because it was like 110 degrees outside that day
Ugh.
going through Texas. And I'm walking in and I'm like, I'm so excited to see you guys. This is so amazing, you know, and this is what we're doing. And then afterwards, you know, sitting back and talking to people and doing signings and stuff like that. But, you know, it's one of those things that I thought about this the other day with you, about what you're going through right now, and not just the challenges, but the vision that you have and the effort that you put into it. George and I talked about it a little bit yesterday about, like, you know, he's got so much energy, it's amazing, and whatever he puts his mind to, he's like really good at. And someone like me could look back at what you're going through and go, I hope he doesn't break, and I hope he continues down this journey and fulfills the vision. And I'm like, but if he sticks to it, the pressure will sharpen the diamond.
Yeah.
And that's what we always have to focus on. A lot of times we don't want to do the hard things because it's hard and it's a struggle. But I'm telling you, man, if you just stick with it, it doesn't get easier. You just get more confident.
Sure.
So it never gets easier. And we might look at things and be like, you know, it comes to us quicker, but you get more confident with it. So when I look at this list, I had to do this in order to do the next race, in order to do the next race, and my confidence got built up with that. The endurance has always been there, but you have to couple endurance with confidence. Like, you have to have the confidence that, yeah, man, I could really do this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So
It's
important.
like the event
I
that
remember a couple of years ago, Alex and I were working out here at the gym, and he told me, he's like, I'm going to run a 6-day race. I'm going to run 100. And I mean, before Alex, I had never heard of ultra running.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't
Most
know,
people
I didn't know
haven't. It's
anything
still-
about it.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
And he told me he says, yeah, I'm going to run for 6 days straight. And I'm probably going to run 200 miles or something like that. And so there's no way possible. You can't possibly do that.
It's not humanly possible.
I was like, even a marathon's 26 miles. Like, and those people, like you
Are
can't run
dead
more than that
after.
in a day.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, you can.
Yeah.
And he told me about some of the people that do it, and like I started like learning more about it, and it's just, I mean, it's amazing. Like, it's just it's what you set your mind to and what you ultimately like believe you can do.
Yeah,
And,
it's nuts. The more you dig into it, this is similar for me. It's like, oh, I'm going to do a mud race, an obstacle race. It's 3 miles. Then it's a 10K. And then it's like, oh, who's David Goggins? That's kind of how I found out about ultra running. And then you find out about and it just gets, even now, as I'll follow these people that are like world ultra distance runners, and it's just like, It's unbelievable. It's
Yeah.
so inspiring, and
I
it's
mean,
like to really
until-
see what you could do. It's like, it's crazy.
Until he did the race last year, I was like, he's crazy. There's no way
Yeah.
that's not gonna happen. There's no way. There's no way. I mean, like I would imagine when you probably had you started doing the Ironman in Hawaii, the 5 days.
Right.
You probably had people say, "There's no way you could do that."
Oh, and it's so interesting, right, when you say that. And by the way, David was your inspiration, and Dean Karnazes was mine.
Yeah.
Early on, and he was so amazing to
Do the
do
forward
the
on
forward
it,
for
yeah.
my book. And when I was seeing some of the stuff that he was doing, not just Badwater, but 50 marathons.
Well,
in
he is
50
like
days.
Ultraman, right? He's like
He
one
is,
of the
yeah,
like.
he is. He's an ultra marathon man, and so he was not only a great inspiration, but the way that he was able to market himself, and the way that he came about being like, hey, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this like in a business way too, and so that was an amazing thing to see that you could do. But I remember being in the gym at the club in Kona, in the sauna, doing heat training with my buddy Matt, and we were sitting there just bouncing ideas about this Epic 5 thing. And this guy walks in and he sits down, and Maddie and I are still talking about it, and kind of like working on logistics and stuff. And Maddie's very upfront and very forward, and when he's very confident in something or someone, he talks about it. And he looks at the guy that's next to him, and he's like, hey, did you hear what Jason's doing? And because he was like kind of a mutual friend. And he goes, no, what's going on, Jason? What are you up to? These days, you doing another Ultraman? And Maddie goes, and he looks at the guy right in his eyes, and he goes, no, he's going to do 5 Ironmans on 5 islands. And the guy goes, that's humanly impossible.
In 5 days.
Yeah, in 5 consecutive days.
Yeah.
And the guy goes, that's humanly impossible. And excuse my language for a minute. And Maddie looks at him and he goes, don't ever effing question Jason. And I was like, wow. Like, he had my back. Like, he saw it before I saw it.
Yeah.
Like, I saw the vision. And I was putting it together logistic-wise and stuff like that. But he knew in his core, from just watching me from previous years of what I was able to accomplish, that he had no question at all that we could pull this off. And you need that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like George needs to see that in you, and you need, Alex, you need to see that in George, because sometimes we don't see what other people see. The good and the bad, by the way. But if you see something, a skill set, or if you see a gift, build on that. And I think that's what's so amazing in business, and like one of my biggest goals in life is to get to a point financially to where I'm like, I see a skill set in that kid right there, and I want to invest in that.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that is developed. I don't care if it's coding, computer coding, or if it's an athletic gift, or maybe he's got this mental capacity to be an amazing athlete, but he doesn't have the resources or the financial backing. I want to make sure that happens. And I think that there's so many youth out there that have these special gifts. They just don't have that platform.
Absolutely.
And so my give back and my inspiration has always been like the 18 and under crowd, to go back to finding that Jason Lester and investing in him.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's my biggest inspiration.
That's sweet, man. Oh, you're really doing it. You're really
Trying to.
Yeah, man. It's amazing. Especially with this week coming up, it's going to be intense. Kind of break it down. What's your game plan for this week, for the 7-day run?
There's so many variations of how you could break something like this down. You could look at it and be like, "It's going to be a long 7 days." Giddy up.
Yeah.
Get on the
Here
get
we
on
go.
the horse and tighten up. And but the way that my brain works and the way that my body needs to react is. By the way, can we pause real quick?
Yeah.
Susan's calling.
Yeah, so
and she's
she's
probably at Dick's Sports picking up a package, and they're. I'm pausing.
Oh, I'm positive, and
Oh,
I can edit together, however.
Oh, okay. So yeah, just like that book is so old to me.
I know it is. That's why.
That book ends at.
That's why I haven't
think
brought
the
it up a lot,
ESPYs.
just because.
Yeah. I mean, we have a.
Because like a
we have
different life,
10-year
right?
gap.
Yeah.
We have it, and it goes by so quick. Oh my gosh. You know. But I mean, the book, it gets written and then it gets launched, and like you're already kind of into like 2012, and it's still like brand new. But it goes by super fast, man.
Sure.
Especially like last year was a blur.
It was.
You know
It
what I
just
mean?
Zip by.
And you're already like making plans for like, because I'm gonna do the DECA Epic 5, or it's called Epic DECA. It's like to celebrate our 10-year anniversary next year. So I'm like, wait, that's 2022.
Yeah.
It didn't happen this year. It didn't happen the year before. I'm like, oh my God, what are we doing?
Yeah, I mean.
And I just made that commitment to the race director. I saw her in person last week. And
What
she's
what
like,
time of year is it in 2022?
It's gonna be May.
In May.
Yeah, and
Is that the 30 Ironman in 30 days?
no, that's this October.
Oh, okay.
That's in Louisiana. But the Epic 5 is actually going to be called Epic 10
Oh, okay.
next year to celebrate
The
that we launched it in '09, but we couldn't do it in 2020. We couldn't do it in 2021. So it's going to be like Epic 10, but it's going to be in Epic 12. It's going to be 12 years.
So are you going to do 10 Ironmans but on 10 different islands? How does
Yeah,
it
so
work
it's
for
like
the
2
islands?
per island.
Okay. Just
So
double it up.
It'll be a different course, but on the same island.
So you do two in 2 days on the same island, or do you go through and then keep rotating through?
No, you like go to the island, you'll do 2 in 2 days
Okay.
there, and then you get on a plane, you go to the next one.
Oh
So
yeah.
I met.
Ooh, I
met
gotta
her
I gotta
in
plan my
person.
trip to Hawaii.
Yeah, dude. Bro, I would love for you guys to get
That'd be
involved,
super
man.
sweet, man.
It'll change your life.
Yeah.
It's how I invited Rich into doing it. I'm like, I want to change your life, and we can talk about that on air too. And so I met up with her because I had to get some stuff from her, and she's like, I really think you should consider, doing it. And it was never really on my mind. And she's like, dude, it's your race, And I'm like, because I have so much that I want to accomplish. It's like hard to.
You still have a bike?
Yeah, exactly. It's like in storage back home. And, but I have to get on the bike in a couple months anyways for the 30-30.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? I'll be trained up for the 30-30 already, because that doesn't end till the end of November, and it's in May.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And they're like, and she was like, they're gonna film it for a documentary, and it's gonna be on Netflix, and
Sweet.
it'd be weird if the founder wasn't
Not
like,
there.
in it. And I'm
Yeah.
like, well, I don't need the cameras on me. That's not why I would do it. But
So humble.
I'm telling you, man, I don't know. I don't even think the word's humble though, and it's not shy.
Yeah.
It's again, I don't see
it's
myself.
not important to you.
It just doesn't feel natural. I think that's what it is for you.
Man.
It just does. It doesn't bring out a natural conversation when you get all that stuff behind
I've seen
it.
what it does to athletes too, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't want to be that person.
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%.
Like, and like my friends,
Yeah.
and I mean, we won't name names, but I'm like, I've seen what money and fame does to someone, and I'm like, that's the person you don't want to be.
Sure.
Like just because you've been stepped up to something of a different level, it's not a different level to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, even when I did the deal with Nike and it was like, financially a blessing, my brain was still like charity. What are we gonna do about giving back and all that? Instead of being like, let's go look at the Porsche, and now you can buy a house. And
I think with like the way that I see it, like kind of listening to you, is that it's not important getting there and getting the success. It's what you do with that success. Yeah. Everybody needs money, makes the world go round.
Yeah.
And you need that, but it's being able to touch other lives and to help better other people. And
That's
the
where I
people
get my
around you.
stoke from.
Yeah.
I remember being like, Jason, if you this might be good to be on air too. Jason, if you make it across the Great Wall, because I have talks with myself, if you accomplish this, you can go get that 911 that you've wanted since a child.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have the resources, you have the ability. Go treat yourself. It's okay to treat yourself.
Yeah.
Whether you want to get yourself like a new necklace or a watch or whatever, like these things that we've always kind of like would that, would be cool. Like I always wanted an SB ring, like to just put it away, put it away for my daughter, and I'm like, it's okay to treat yourself to this, and I tell myself that, and it's never happened because it's like I have to trick myself, and like I accomplish these things, and I'm like, well, no, like I want to go to Guatemala though, and like, go help kids, and I don't even call it help. I always say go be with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because that's what inspires me to like, I want to do something crazy, like this where you have a hard time wrapping
You say
your brain.
the cost of an SB ring is X number of dollars. That money in Guatemala could help
The whole village. Yeah.
It's
feed
like-
them or help build a school or whatever the case is.
Like I've never owned a house before, never owned a condo, never had any real estate, I've never any of that, right? Like my brain doesn't think about it. It's not something of interest, none of that. And the reason why is because I'm like, that's a lockdown. That's a commitment. That's a priority. And it's true, right? And they're like, oh, well, you can rent it while you're gone and all that. And I'm like, no, because I'm not a landlord. I don't want to do
And it
that.
pulls
Like,
your
I don't
time away
even,
from
like,
what you're
ask,
doing.
Ask Alex. He can send me a text and I'll answer him in like 5 days.
No, it's like I send a
And it
dove
has
to
nothing
deliver.
to do with him. It has nothing to do with him. I don't want to be on this thing.
Yeah.
I don't, you know what I mean?
Especially
Like,
after watching The Social Dilemma, huh?
well, I mean, like, and it's even before that.
Yeah.
Like, dude, Rich is the one that got me on social media.
Yeah.
He's the one that made me start an Instagram account in 2009. And he's like, dude, if you want this to be successful, you have to, like, and I'm like, no, I don't want Facebook.
Yeah.
I don't want, like, I want to train.
Yeah.
I want to be outside and train. Like, dude, I have to be outdoors all the time. It's like, when I wake up in the morning, I get up and I have to be outdoors. And so I've cut these things out of my life that would tie me down to not being able to do that. And we have an immense responsibility with family and all of these things. And it's like, it's even that, like I'm like shocked as hell I'm even in a relationship because I'm like, I even told her too, I'm like, I can't commit to you. And she's like, oh, what, are you a player? I'm like, no. I'm like, yeah, player. Like I want to play.
Yeah. I
You know,
want to
like,
compete.
I want to be outdoors playing.
Yeah.
And so luckily I found a partner that loves to play.
Yeah.
Like, she's like my sidekick. Like she's like, what are we doing today? Where are we going? When we have the ability to do that. So it's just, and it could go back to that childhood trauma where I feel like every day is my opportunity to honor life. Like I'm breathing. I made it. You know what I mean? But I can't do that like in a cubicle.
No.
I can't. It has to be like out there. It has to be on there. That's my like. You made it, dude. Like this is all my victory lap.
Yeah.
This isn't like I got to run for 7 days. Like, you know what I mean? I'll run for 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you could be like, dude, it's a 20-day treadmill run, and
Let's go.
1 day, 20, whatever it is. I'm gonna go pee real quick.
Okay.
Okay.
And then we'll wrap
Are
it
you
up.
guys good on time?
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you
We'll
sure?
wrap it up. No,
You got commitments. Everybody's got commitments.
no.
Where's your wife?
She's at home with the
Oh,
babies.
she went home?
Yeah. She got
Okay.
it all set up in there.
Okay, let me just
Yeah.
drain the radiator real quick. You guys figure out what.
I mean, like Alex did one the other night by himself, just 20 minutes,
No way.
10 minutes. So what's it, 7 minutes?
Stop it.
Just shorties.
Sometimes he.
By yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Solo
okay.
sode.
I was
He
like,
just talks about a
I was
topic.
like,
or
dude, who's
whatever.
coming in the studio for 7 minutes?
All right, guys, we are back at it. We're going to wrap this thing up soon, but we're going to have Jason fill us in on kind of what the game plan is this week. He's doing the 7-day run. We're going to ballpark shoot starting around 11:11 tomorrow. But Jason, what is your game plan? You're breaking this down into segments instead of looking at the big picture. What's talk to us?
We'll come out the gate. I'll break this down in 4-hour segments. So we'll do like 4 hours and then take a 20-minute break. 4 hours, 20-minute break, and then we'll try to bang 3 of those out before we take a dinner break, or a little rest break. Day one you're always strong and you're excited and everybody's pumped and everyone, the energy's awesome. But the thing about this is just staying consistent, and even though you feel strong and you feel excited, you still got to take those breaks. You still need to, I want an ice bath and
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Get the.
I gotta get these fully submerged, baby.
I know. But
yeah, that's the tough part, day one, because just to keep that, just like you're saying, like 4 hours, try to take a break. Like you just want to keep going, man. I feel good, but that the compounding effect of that's just not gonna work, right?
Yeah, you need to look at the long-term picture on this, which is hard because, you know, one of the variations that I looked at too is like, do you jump on this thing quick and bang out 100 miles the first day and then, you know, tone it down to 80, but you got that nice buffer? Why did they go buy fans when you have fans?
Oh.
They have fans.
No, George's has those.
I have those, but
It's okay. We got more. We got more.
Susan has one of those in the back of the car that she brought.
I've got a couple air mattresses too. I could have brought.
We
thought
have
we have
4
two
air
back there, I thought.
mattresses.
Oh,
No, the ones that they brought, I doubled it up, or you wouldn't be able to get up and down.
No, Susan has one in her car too. But my point is how'd you get the fan situation?
What's wrong?
No, why?
Because
Keep you cool, baby.
you have to stay cool, and the ones that they had were those.
Who's
tall,
they?
Alex and his
Yeah,
wife.
but Georgie had those, but it's okay. It's okay.
yeah. I was just supposed to bring them and I forgot them today. It's my fault.
Yeah.
We can return that on our way back.
Then that-
No, we're good.
finish your interview, and then we'll.
Yeah.
figure out
You're on the radio right now.
Yeah,
so
you're
I'm putting you on the
live.
news.
You're live.
You're
on
live,
Put you on the
Tara.
news. Put you on the news.
Trying to take care of me.
Take care of what?
You, baby.
You.
You. You got you a good girl.
You know, it's
Those
so,
look like they're a lot nicer fans too.
No,
than the ones I have. I've just got like the basic box fan. So
That'll keep
those
you
may
cool.
work better.
Yeah.
Hey, it's okay.
Yeah, the
I
more
mean,
the merrier.
I don't know if they cranked the AC on.
Well, I think it's
There's a
blowing
fan
right here.
blowing.
This thing is.
Yeah.
I feel it like getting froze.
So
So yeah, 4
you
hour
always
segments.
go. Yeah, you always go into these things with a plan. I could tell you right now that plans get thrown out the door. You know, 2 or 3 days into it. But you know, again, you have to visualize the way you would like to have it. You know, go down. I don't have any concerns. I'm not worried about anything. There's one thing that happens that sucks, but you can't change it, and that's, you know, blisters and stuff that happens, biomechanic stuff. So, you know, just stay at peace, and you know, make sure you know that this is just going to be not over anytime quick.
Yeah.
But, so I got this thing broken down into 2 ways. I got 4-hour sessions, and we're only running for 3 days. You know, so meaning there's like a first part and a second part.
Right.
So we got to get to day 3, and then we, you know, we're climbing up the mountain.
Yep.
And
Checkpoints.
then, yeah, exactly. And then
Yeah.
after that, you know, you go down. And so you know, you have to, you can trick your body and your mind, you know, and instead of looking at this like, you know, Everest in front of you,
Yeah.
you look at it where we have base camps.
Yeah.
You know, we're gonna sit here for a little while, and it's gonna be, you know, we gotta watch the storm.
Yeah.
Make sure there's not an avalanche. You know what I mean? And
Well, it's
and
important
then-
mentally, man. You talk about it in your book too, right? It's like you start thinking like, oh, I've got 6 more days. I've got 7 more. It's just you start thinking like that. It's not gonna be good.
Yeah, I did that, and I did that with Epic 5. Is that I was just like, you know, I would look like 2 islands down the chain,
Yeah.
and like places that I loved about those islands, and it really helps you, you know, to get there, and at the same time still trying to stay present. Todd looks like he's pissed. He's like, I can't believe I'm involved with this.
Todd, he's our boy.
We got Todd on here.
Yeah.
It's
He's gonna be here all week.
It's going back there, so
Oh, okay, getting set up.
yeah.
Yeah, she was saying because we brought the twin mattresses. They're only this tall, so she's thinking for you to get down and up
I've
from
got
those. So
I've
she
got a
double
queen
stacked
size
them.
one that's about that tall too.
I saw
think
that
that's that
stacked
one.
back there.
Yeah.
If you want me to bring one of those, I can bring that.
No, I think we got enough now.
Yeah, because
I think we got like 6 back. We got enough for everybody to sleep.
Yeah, well, that room is huge.
Yeah.
I'm like, you could set your bed up in the corner. if you
Yeah,
want,
right?
the other end.
Do you want a window view or do you want a
Yeah.
wall view?
You want a TV setup back there? We got it all.
No, you guys. I want to put it on air too. That I just thank you for everything that you've done. I always say it's always a team effort. You know what I mean? To accomplish something like this, and that's why it's got to be like the best vibe possible in order to want to even attempt something like this, because you know, vibe's a frequency.
Yeah.
You know, energy's a frequency, and so you, not only is it the charity initiative side of it, but the you know, the teams that's involved. And I've learned a lot about that throughout the years. You know, where it's like, oh, you know, I would love for that person to be involved, and I want that person on my team, and you know, this is going to be amazing for that person, and then like, you know, it's just wrong timing and wrong energies.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's super important.
I think that's why a lot of, even on this list of things that I've accomplished, a lot of it was done alone,
Yeah.
because I needed to do it. I needed to not make sure that it went well, but I needed to just make sure that I was the only one that I could blame if something did go wrong.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we all have our own ideas and ways that we want to look at things too. So
Well, you're welcome, man. We're glad to be a part of it.
thank
Yeah.
you.
Super excited
Greatly
for what
I'm
appreciate it.
super excited to
Yeah.
be a part of it.
I'm excited and proud for Elevated and the vision you have and where it's going towards. And you know, I told Alex this on a phone call, that anything that I could do for you guys, brand wise and product wise and all of that, count me in. And you know, it's going to be an amazing journey.
Yeah, it is, man.
You know, and I hope that you guys are getting up every day stoked about it and what you're doing with people, not just inspiring them, but you know, helping to give them tools to make a greater impact on themselves. Because
Yeah.
everything starts with us first. You know, we're a walking billboard.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the way we talk and act and feel, and the way that we, you know, see things in life, you know, let the brand build itself
Yeah.
just by living the brand.
Yep.
You know, being actually
Living
what
an
you guys are
elevated life,
promoting.
baby.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
No, thank you. And
We'll do a after
We'll do
race
more.
podcast,
Yeah,
baby.
yeah,
Once
yeah.
that record's crushed, we'll be back on here.
send me some legs.
Yeah, man.
You did great on your first podcast.
Yeah, man.
Hey, thank you.
Congrats.
You're a natural.
Yeah, dude.
Thank you. I appreciate it. This is fun.
Cool,
and that's
man.
the way that it should be. You should feel comfortable,
It's
and
all
it should be fun.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Again, go subscribe to our channel so you get updates when we have our newest videos. Follow us on Instagram. Be sure to go to either one of our Instagram pages. You can click the bio link. That's where we're raising money for Mia's Miracles. They started a campaign for us called Runners for Miracles, just because we're doing a year-long fundraiser. We're trying to raise $100,000 this year in support of Mia's Miracles. The campaign's called Runners for Miracles. Follow along with us, guys. This is not the only event we're doing this year. Jason's crazy enough. We're going to do a 6-day run in 3 weeks after this. And then we've got a bunch more lined up throughout the year to help for our cause. So thanks again, guys. Don't forget to subscribe, share with your friends, and we'll catch you next time.
Out.